Good evening. And welcome. Once again. I see we've got Snorkers in the chat. Good to see you. Thank you as always for the support. So, hello. Okay, so yeah, today we're going to be taking a look at the Atari Lynx, courtesy of the Evercade. Yes, the Lynx was a very impressive system for its time. It was one of several cases of Atari sort of, I don't know if I want to say over-promising and under-delivering, but it was certainly Atari perhaps getting a bit too big for its boots, shall we say. It was a 16-bit handheld as opposed to the Game Gear and the Game Boy, which were 8-bit. It was colour, a backlit screen, and it absolutely devoured batteries. As in, you could get about 2 hours of playtime off 6 batteries. So you would probably want to spend most of your time playing it on the AC adapter, which was thankfully included. Yes, batteries were expensive back then, so yeah, we got through a lot of rechargeable batteries. At least we had the opportunity to use rechargeable batteries, which was something. But they didn't last as long as regular AA's either. So yeah, it was a pricey prospect to play it on the go, and you were also at great risk. I have very unfond memories of playing an excellent game of Gauntlet 3 on the way home from my nan's house one day, and I got further than I'd ever been before, and my batteries ran out pretty much just as we were pulling into our driveway back home. The drive was just slightly longer than the battery life of the Lynx, and most Lynx games didn't have a save facility because they came on these little sort of card-sized cartridges that basically didn't have space to put a battery backup or anything on. So some later stuff have used EEPROMs to save data, but as far as I'm aware, I don't think there were any back in the day that actually had a save facility. But anyway, let us switch over to the game screen. Like I say, we use the Evercade to explore some of the Lynx's library today, because the two Evercade cartridges that have Lynx games on them, they cover a nice sort of cross section of the library, both from back in the day and a few slightly more modern titles as well. There's 2 cartridges in the Evercade Collection. All right, Korean, how you doing? Yeah, so there's 2 cartridges in the Lynx collection, one of which is by Songbird Productions, who picked up a lot of the rights to some classic Lynx games and some not so classics as well. And they also develop their own stuff as well. They've been making new Lynx games since about 2000 or so. So well after the Lynx was relevant and current, they were making new stuff, and as far as I'm aware, they still are making new stuff. But they've also been a staunch supporter of the Evercade since day one as well. So yeah, it was perfectly natural for them to support the platform in this way. And then this second cartridge consists of Epic's titles. So Epic's had a hand in developing the Lynx, and it is indeed the Lynx effect. Although you wouldn't believe it to smell me right now, I'm sure. Yeah, so the second cart is all Epic's games, which were arguably the best games on the platform, because Epic's are the ones who designed the platform, at least in part, and so they had the best mastery of it. And so a lot of the Epic's games are the most technically impressive ones that are on there. So since Korean's here, we're going to start with Shido, The Way of Stones. So Shido is a solitaire board game played with multicoloured tiles marked with symbols. The objective is to place all the tiles onto the board and obtain the highest possible score. Tiles can only be placed next to other tiles, and they must share either a colour or a symbol with all of the neighbouring tiles. You have to plan your moves carefully to maximise your score. With multiple modes of play and nearly limitless depth, Shido is a challenging puzzle game that will keep you coming back for more. And then the leather lady shags you, yes, but only if you fill the entire board. Right, so this is an interesting puzzle because they tried to position it as some sort of ancient Chinese game, but they basically just lied about it. So it's not an ancient Chinese game at all. It's just a puzzle game that they made up. But they came up with all this backstory and they linked it to the, what's it called, the I Ching or something like that, the Chinese oracle thing. But yeah, it is a lovely puzzler. It's very simple. Possibly not the most interesting game to watch, but I feel like I've got the right audience for it in my chat right now. So if anyone's going to appreciate it, it's going to be you two. So we'll just play a solitaire game for now. Here's the oracle option. What you're supposed to do is you turn on the oracle and you think of a question that you would like the oracle to answer. And if you get a four-way match during the game, which I must be honest, I tend not to, you will get an answer for your question. So if you picture a question in your mind, wait for it to answer, and then play the game, yeah. The oracle is on. Think of a question for the oracle and remember it or write it down. Right, and we then play. So the board always starts like this. The black outline is known as the beyond, and is you don't score any points for stuff you put down there. And the middle bit is called the, I can't remember what it's called, but it's not the beyond, and you score points in there. And what you have to do is the tile in the upper right is the tile that you've got in your hand at the moment. Yes, we'll call it the home counties then. The beyond and the home counties, because once you're beyond the home counties, what's the point in living? Right, so we've got a yellow tile with that sort of crisscross pattern on it now. So we can either put that next to this yellow and pink tile down here, or we can put it next to this crisscross one up here. I'm not very good at this game, so I apologise in advance if... God, without the context, it's so bizarre, purely for the image of a puzzle game asking for your gender. Yes, it is. It is a little odd when you think about it, but yeah, I don't know how much it sort of customises the answer, because, like I say, it's dependent on you doing one of the most difficult things in the game in order to get an answer. But in theory, you should feel like you've earned your answer by the time you get it. Anyway, I'm going to put this here, and then I'm going to pop this here. And I'm going to pop this here. And you see over on the right, because I'm now in the home counties instead of the beyond, I've got 1 point for that. Whereas I haven't got any point for the stuff that I've put in the beyond. That one can go there. That one can... Now, I can't put it there because it doesn't match one of its sides. It is difficult. It is a difficult game. I don't think I've ever successfully completed it, but it's one of those games that's just quite relaxing to play. I find it's just a sort of nicely meditative experience. So anyway, this one can't go here because although it matches the green and red one there, it doesn't match the hash symbol one there. So I'll pop it there instead. And then this one can go over here. Another matching one there, so we'll pop that in the home counties for some points. Gradually build up. This is the strategy I usually use. I don't know if it's an effective one, which is to sort of gradually build out from where all the colours start. Like I say, I don't know if that's... Yeah, so Snork is what... It has to match either the background colour or the entire colour scheme, because there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different colour schemes. It has to match the colour scheme or the symbol. But if you're doing a multi-way match, there's additional rules. So, for example, if I try and put something here, it'll say you must match all adjacent stones by shape or colour. If I try and match something on two sides, you have to match one side by shape and one side by colour. And if you do a four-way match, 2 of the sides have to be matched by shape and 2 of the sides have to be matched by colour. So it gets quite complicated after a while. So, for example, if I try and put this one here, no, it's still giving me that same tip. So, pop that there. Build out here. Right, here we are. So when making a two-way match, you must match one stone by shape and the other by colour. So you can't put one piece that is adjacent to 2 other pieces if they're the same colour. So I can't put that one there because both of the matches are the yellow and pink. So if I wanted to make that a match, one of those tiles would have to be a yellow and pink one, and the other one would have to be a different coloured one of that sort of gunsight reticle type thing. So that one can't go there, but it can go there. And again, that can go out there. All right, we're starting to get into territory where they're going to start interfering with each other now, so this is where it starts to get a little bit interesting. We've got a hash here. Now, this one we can do a two-way match, because if I put this here, the yellow and pink will match the yellow and pink on the left, and the hash symbol will match the hash symbol to the north. So if I pop that there, I get 2 points. Ooh, exciting. Oh. Another hash there. That won't fit there, though, will it? Now, what happens if I do this? You must match all adjacent stones by shape or colour. So that can't go there because although it's matching those two hashes, it doesn't match the 3-stroke one there. So let's just put that out of the way over there for the minute. Pink 3-stroke. Don't think there's anything amazing I can do with that. Wait. It doesn't score any points if I put it there, though. That's the thing. But it will go there. No, it won't. Okay, never mind. There then, I guess. That can go here. Another hash. Hash is always my downfall. Right, pink diamond. There. You grow up into that area there. And you spread out a bit from there. You spread out some from there. That one can go there because that's a two-way match again. So another 2 points. Oh, getting a bit feisty now. Pop that there. Probably unwise, but I don't know. I guess I am not super experienced with this game. But I do enjoy it. Hash. You go there. Another two-way there. Lovely. No, can't get a two-way there. Or there. Oh, that's upsetting. Fine, you go there. And then... starting to run out of scoring spaces. You go there for now. Well, not for now, it's... Yes, it could do with some music. But I don't think there's the option for that, unfortunately. Because the Lynx had a fairly limited number of sound channels, it was one of those platforms where in a lot of cases you tended to have music or sound and not both. There are exceptions, and we'll see some of those today, but yeah, there were quite a few games that were designed to be sort of fairly quiet, contemplative experiences, which is not necessarily a bad thing, especially for a handheld game. Oh, God. No, that won't go there, will it? Or there. We'll go there, though. We're entering the chaos phase of the board. Two-way. Lucky little two-way there. Now that there are no moves left. All right. So, at that point, you can see what you've got left in your pouch. Oh, hold on. Show my pouch. Show my pouch? Okay, so that's what I had left in my pouch. So over on the right, it tells you how many points you got and how many four-way matches you got. And also down at the bottom right, you can see how sort of a rough overview of how many tiles you had left. As you're playing, you can bring up hints that will show you the places where you can put your stones as you go on, but it won't tell you sort of the optimal place to put them. So 45 is not a terrible result, I don't think. And it does keep you high scores. Or it should do anyway. I think it believes I used a hint or something like that. But anyway, it can keep you high scores. And using the Evercade save system, you can actually save those high scores as well, which is not something you could do with the original Lynx version. So that is Shido. There are some other ways to play as well. There's a cooperative mode where you can you basically collaborate with another player to do the same thing. There's a challenge mode, which I think is you compete for score. And then there's a tournament mode where a bunch of you all play the same board together and compete to get the highest score. And that's it, I think. And then you can tweak the options. So ancient scoring, because this is an ancient Chinese game, remember. Ancient scoring just scores you on how many four-way matches you make, and modern scoring is what we were playing there. You can also set either player 1 or player 2 to be computer controlled, so you can just watch it play a game if you want to. And that's that, basically. So yeah, that's a fun game that I like a lot. It's a good game to have on the Evercade, particularly on the handheld, because it's a nice game to just be able to sort of pop out and enjoy when you feel like it. All right, what's next? If anyone's got any requests from this lot at any point that you particularly like to see, do let me know. Otherwise, I will just pick something and we'll go from there. So I think for the minute, let's go for Blue Lightning. This is one of my favourites. So there's the controls for this. The Lynx had 2 buttons. So you'll see on the controller mapping down there, the A and B buttons are basically duplicated on the A and B and X and Y buttons. And then the 2 option buttons on the Lynx are on Start and Select. So this is one of the Epix games. This is, I guess you could say it's a bit like Afterburner, but it's got a bit more depth to it than Afterburner has. It's more obviously a game that's been designed for sort of a home experience rather than an arcade experience. Blue Lightning! Software by Stephen Landrum and graphics by Arthur Koch. Press any button to start. Alright, I will. So the password system in this, so although there was no save function in this one either, you can pick up where you left off by using a password. We will just go from the beginning on our first mission. Dogfight. Destroy enemy aircraft. Now the premise of this game is that you are the worst pilot in the Air Force, and so they've given you the honour of flying this experimental untested aircraft called Blue Lightning, because they don't think you'll come back alive, but they feel like you might come back with some useful combat data for them. So you've been sent off on the highway to the danger zone, as a great man once said, to go and blast enemies and perhaps achieve something for the war effort against the non-specified enemy forces. Try and remember when this was and if we were still in Cold War territory at this point. I think we were more sort of into kind of Gulf War territory by the time this came out. Because a lot of earlier Atari games were very much... whoops! Crashed into a plane. A lot of early Atari games were very much sort of Cold War themed. But this is more sort of generic military conflict, I guess. Indeed, Saddam and his Frank Spencer beret. So this game is using the Lynx's hardware scaling facilities. So it was able to scale sprites but not rotate them. So it wasn't quite as sort of technologically advanced as the SNES was. But it was able to do smooth scaling of sprites. And you'll see quite a lot of games make extensive use of that, and this is probably one of the most impressive examples. It was also not terrible at pushing polygons around as well for the time period. I mean, obviously it's very primitive for the time, but a lot of the stuff on the ground is done with polygons. And there's actually a good sense of occupying a 3D space in this, because it actually sort of keeps track of your altitude. So if you pull back and fly up and down, there's actually a good sense of you actually going up and down, which is something that Afterburner didn't have. So here we are flying very low over the fields. But if you pull right back, you'll see they disappear down beneath you. But actually a reasonably convincing effect of altitude for the time period. Yeah, the altitude is really good, especially when there's a lot of missions have cloud cover as well, and there's a really good sense of going up to high altitude when there's clouds. The landing sequence, you don't have to land manually, thankfully. It takes the unusual approach of landing automatically by hovering a couple of feet across the ground and then basically... But then, like I say, you are canonically, supposedly, the class clown of the Air Force. Yeah, big chunky Lynx text is lovely. Well, you got to remember, this was on like a 3.5-inch screen originally. And so, although it looks... all the pixels look absolutely giant on a big screen today, this actually looked pretty lovely on a small backlit LCD screen. Right, this one we're attacking ground targets, so we're staying low for this one. You can't actually crash into the ground, but you can crash into ground features. So like these sort of rolling hills here, which are created with scaling sprites. Yeah, you can crash into those, so you need to sort of navigate around them. Not seeing many targets. And you also see that targets can disappear behind hills and stuff as well, so you need to sort of dive down and get them. Yeah, in a better world, a lot of Atari's things would have been more successful. Like the Jaguar had a ton of potential that was squandered. But the Lynx in particular, I think, could have done some amazing stuff. There were some really good games available for it. And by the time it really sort of failed and was discontinued, there were some people were just sort of starting to get the hang of porting over really cool stuff from home computers. So we were starting to get ports of Amiga stuff like Shadow of the Beast. And that kind of thing. And there was a lot of stuff planned for the Lynx that just never came to fruition. There was going to be a version of the RPG Eye of the Beholder, for example. There is a prototype out there of that, but I don't think it's finished. What else was there? There was a version of Lode Runner. I know that's a very old game, but again, that's a prototype that never got released, but eventually found its way out into the wild. And various others. But yeah, what we did get was very good. Often very ambitious. A very different style of game to what you got on the Game Boy. Is that although the Game Boy had a lot of arcade ports in its early life, later on, the stuff you got on the Game Boy started to feel a lot more like it was designed in the same way as console games. Whereas for most of the Lynx's lifespan, a lot of its experience was still designed with the kind of arcadey philosophy that Atari had used with its earlier consoles, like the 2600 and the 7800. So there were some games with a bit more depth to them, but a lot of them were designed to be very replayable games, where you'd play for high scores or best times or something like that. And that way it didn't matter too much that the system wasn't really built for saving your game, because these games were designed to just be played over and over again. So I don't know if Evercade is planning a third Lynx compilation yet. I'd certainly like to see one, because there's a few games from the Lynx's library that I'd still like to see given a modern re-release. Some of those are possible. Like there's a very good Space Harrier style shoot 'em up called Turbo Sub, which is one of my favourite games on the platform. I think that's an Epix one, so that should in theory be able to happen. Unfortunately, a lot of the really good games are tied up with Midway, which means dealing with Warner Brothers, which means you're not getting those. So stuff like Clax and Gauntlet and that kind of thing are probably not going to happen unless some sort of deal is managed to be struck with Warner. But they just don't want to. They just don't want to talk, which is annoying. Nork says, is there a Lynx helicopter game? If not, there should be. Yes, there is. There's a port of the Atari arcade game Steel Talons, if you're familiar with that at all, which was a polygonal helicopter game. The Lynx port is okay. It's not the best. It's a bit jerky because, like I say, the Lynx was really built a bit more for throwing around sprites rather than polygons. But it was actually an admirable effort, and I remember playing it quite a bit back in the day and enjoying it. So, and Steel Talons is a great arcade game as well. So, it didn't get many home ports either. So it was just nice to see a version of it that wasn't in the arcade. The arcade game was really cool though, because it had sort of proper helicopter controls. You had a cyclic joystick in front of you and a collective sort of handbrake style joystick to one side to move up and down. So you actually had to fly it reasonably like a real helicopter. Obviously with a very simplified flight model, but it was certainly a far cry from something like Thunderblade. Who's this joker? It's me. It's me, innit? Hi Ken, good to see you. Not seen you around for a while. You want to see an Evercade release of Buck Rogers' Planet of Zoom? Yes, I'm very, very well familiar with that. That is a lovely game. It was on Atari 5200 and Atari 8-bit as well. Oh no, that was silly. Yeah, it was a great game where you had to sort of fly between gates and then do space sequences where you had to shoot down UFOs, and then you had to blast an enemy mothership at the end as well. Yes, everyone loves a bit of Colonel Wilmer Deering. This game sounds like Tesco. Those are my missiles, thank you very much. I'm not sure why it reset me to the start of the level there, because it doesn't seem to always do that. I think it's to do with how far you got through the level. So like if you got beyond a certain point, you'll just respawn where you died. But in some other levels it will reset you back to the start. Unexpected item in flying area. Please remove. Or we will remove with deadly force. No! I was removed with deadly force. Last life. Convoy disabled. I suppose that you can hit your afterburners as well, which I think you do. Like that. There we go. Whee! That just gives you a burst of speed for a bit. Right, let's try not to crash into a picturesque hillside this time. Yeah, Ken, that game actually came out on a surprising number of platforms. I've discovered in recent years there's a ColecoVision version as well, which is quite good. And it was an arcade game originally. I've not managed to get the arcade version emulating properly in MAME. It doesn't do any sound effects. But yeah, there is an original arcade version as well. So yeah, quite a few different versions of that to play. And definitely one of my favourites from back in the day. There are a few games like that on the Atari. There was a really good one called Stealth as well. It's called Landscape in its prototype stage, and we had a pirate copy of the prototype version. So I always knew it as Landscape, but discovered in more recent years that it's actually called Stealth. That was another sort of behind the plane, flying along, dodging things sort of game. But in that one you had the twist where you had to sort of fly through energy fields to restore your energy, and you were trying to close the distance between you and this dark tower off in the distance. Lovely game. We'll have to cover that on Atari A to Z at some point, because it's not one I've done yet. But that was one of those games that really excited me, because I was aware of stuff like Afterburner and things in the arcades at that time, and I so desperately wanted an experience a bit like that at home. And the home port of Afterburner for the Atari ST was a little bit lacking, to say the least. And so I found myself turning to other experiences that sort of resembled it slightly. So there were things like Buck Rogers was one of them. Stealth was this on the Lynx. So stuff from all different generations of hardware, but all providing that sort of third-person aerial combat action that I was craving at the time. And then, of course, all the polygonal flight sims from companies like Microprose as well. Yes, Butt Rogers. Butt Rogers. And the planet of Poon. Alright, that's Blue Lightning. Okay, let's have a look at... Like I say, feel free to request any of these if you see any of them and think, oh, I'd like to see that. Otherwise, I'll just go through a few that I like playing. So we'll go for some Checkered Flag next, which is a racing game. And I have the manual poster for this framed in my toilet, because I found it amongst all my stuff, and my wife liked it, so she framed it and put it up in the toilet. So this is a fairly straightforward racing game. There's no sort of career mode or anything like that, but you can play a tournament of 8 races or a single race. And it was noteworthy. The thing my wife finds most amusing about the manual for this is that it makes a big deal of the fact that you can select your gender. So if you look down at the bottom, you can choose your transmission between automatic 4-speed and 7-speed. You can change the colour of your car, and you can also choose if your driver is male or female. And the manual makes a big deal about, oh, if you win the race, this is where your gender becomes important. So I will attempt to demonstrate why that is the case now. So we can race with up to 9 computer-controlled cars. Protagonist is always trans, no matter what. Yes! Automatic trans. Right, let's pick a course that isn't horrendously difficult. Skull Valley will do. We'll go for 3 laps with 9 computer opponents. 7-speed trans. I don't know. Some people I know only have 1 speed, and it's hardcore. Right. Skull Valley. Jackhammer Elliot, they call him. Love it. Right, so here we go. This is another good showcase of the Lynx's sprite scaling. So, as opposed to most other racing games at the time on home computers and stuff, where they would have to manually draw the individual frames for the other cars and the stuff at the side of the road, this was taking an approach much more similar to arcade games, where it could just draw the sprite once at its full size, and then just use the hardware scaling to smoothly bring it closer to the viewpoint. So in terms of execution, this is a fairly basic racer. There's no hills or anything. But it does have a slightly... I want to call it a very slightly sim-like handling model, in that you can't just go flat out around the whole course. You actually have to brake. And if you're playing with one of the manual transmission modes, you can use tactical downshifting to kind of control your speed a bit. And I'm not normally one for doing manual transmission in racing games, but this one I find it works really well. Because if you look at it more as a sort of speed limiter than anything else, you'll find it actually quite useful in getting around some of the more complex courses. So this is one of the simpler ones. But you see, there's still some tight turns to deal with. This is one of the first games I played where I realised what a difference stereo sound made. I don't know how well that's coming through on the stream, but certainly when I was a kid playing this on headphones and hearing the cars coming up on either side of you, and actually being able to use that audible information to know when to get out of the way and when to block and that sort of thing. That was something I hadn't really experienced before, because all of the video game platforms I played with up until that point had been mono, or I'd been playing them on a TV with only mono sound output. So Lynx's internal speaker was only mono, but if you plugged a pair of headphones into it or plugged it into a hi-fi, then yeah, you get full stereo sound. And that was pretty cool. Sorry, I'm not checking chat at the minute. I'm concentrating. I've won! Alright, what do we say? Love how the wheel animation is just some grey bars at the top flashing. Yes! You see, that's why your gender's important. The gentlemen get a lovely lady, and the ladies get a big hunky man. So there you go. Actually, I'll show you one of my favourite animations in this. So if we just start this race again and just get underway. The most impressive animation in this is when you collide at speed into another car. Because it doesn't do the pole position explode into a cloud of pixels thing. What it does is this. No, missed. I failed to crash. It goes, whee! Look at the number of frames of animation on that. That's lovely. That's a lovely, smooth, spin-out animation. Anyway, we'll just park by this cactus. So that is, how do we restart? You can do... Oh, no. Do that. There we go. Yeah, if you're not familiar, the Lynx actually had a left-handed mode as well, where if you held down the pause button and pressed one of the option keys, you could flip the screen over. And in handheld mode, that meant that you could flip the whole console over and have the D-pad on the right and the buttons on the left, which was cool. Obviously not much use when you're playing it on a TV, but you can still do that with the handheld mode of the Evercade, which is nice. Let's do one more race in this, because I do like this game. Let's go to Palm Springs. A little bit more complicated. We've got a lovely different background for this one. A night race. Got to be careful going off the starting line at the beginning, because some of the computer controlled cars don't accelerate very quickly, so it's very easy to plough straight into the back of one of them right at the beginning. But you'll also notice, in contrast to something like pole position, which simply scattered opponent cars over the track at regular intervals as you continue to drive down it. In this, checkered flag is actually tracking the position of all of the cars on the track at all times. And so that means you can develop a commanding lead. You can have a big comeback from being in last place. That sort of thing. And it's really satisfying when you manage to achieve that. But the guy in first place is rocketing ahead right now. I would also like to draw your attention to the occasional advertising billboards at the side of the road, which advertise such well-known Atari devices as the Portfolio and the Stacy. So the Portfolio was Atari's sort of notebook computer, and the Stacy was a portable ST. And those were both sort of experiments that Atari was doing around the time that the Lynx was out. Both of them went nowhere, but they were a thing that was happening at the time that this game was coming out. Billboard for Atari Corporation there. I think that was a portfolio one that just whizzed past. Oh no! It's alright, took someone else with me. Jackhammer Elliott, rise again. Seventh place, this is unacceptable. One thing... Oh no! One thing that we sadly don't have a solution for at the moment is that this game used to be able to do a link up with up to, I think it was 6 players. You could link up 6 Lynxes and play multiplayer. Which I imagine must have been great fun. But I didn't know anyone with a Lynx, let alone 5 other people, so, you know, I never got to experience that. It's a shame that there's not an easy solution to do that now. I mean, I'm sure there's ways you can do that with emulators and things, but yeah, in terms of the original experience of sitting in a room with 5 of your mates, you've all got Atari Lynxes and checkered flag and having a race. Yeah, that would have been good fun. Oh, I am not doing well, but at least I'm not in last place yet. I don't think we're going to get much further ahead of this, though. We might catch up with the guys ahead of us, but I'm not counting on it. Oh. Hard right. You, out of my way. Out of my way. 6th, I'll take it. Yeah, 4-player gauntlet. See, there we are. There's a female computer driver. Got the big hunky man in his blue pants to get a big kiss. So, there you go. That is the difference that your driver's gender makes in this game. Now you know. But yes, absolutely right. There was a version of Gauntlet on the Lynx where you could play with up to 4 people. And again, I bet that was good. But again, I never had the opportunity to try it, which was a terrible shame. Right, what else shall we do? Let's go for... I'll tell you what, let's go for a bit of Super Asteroids and Missile Command, because these are really nice versions of these games. So this was actually one of the last games released for the Lynx, which kind of surprised me a bit, because it's sort of 2 of Atari's oldest games. And so I kind of dismissed this when it first came out. I was like, oh, I don't want to play Missile Command on my shiny Lynx. But having had a look at this more recently, these are really great versions of these games. So if we start with Super Asteroids. So I mean, this is a fairly straightforward version of Asteroids, but it's got some good explosion sounds. The Lynx was pretty good at explosions. And you'll get weapons and stuff as you go through as well. It also starts much more gently than original Asteroids as well. You see that it's very much split into discrete stages rather than just being one continuous thing like the original. And if I remember rightly, you actually have a health bar in this rather than just take 1 hit and you're dead, which is what the bar over on the right is, I think. I think that's right. Anyway, it's been a little while since I played this one. Oh! Yep, there we go. Ouch! Ouch! Yeah, so you don't have the pullback to do shields or hyperspace in this one. You have sort of automatic shields that come into effect when you hit something. Yeah, there was a really good version of Clacks for Lynx. That was sort of, resolution aside, that was pretty much arcade perfect with all the sound effects and stuff. My mum finished that game She played that game all the way through from start to finish and beat it. Something which I actually never managed to do. But you get 1,000,000 points when you win Clax, which is nice. That was that and Gauntlet were some quite interesting ones though, because some of the Lynx games were designed to be played in what we now know as Tate mode, with the screen. No. Yeah. Sorry, as I was saying, some of the Lynx games were designed to be played in what we now know as Tate mode, with the screen held vertically. There's a power up. And Clax was one of them. Gauntlet was another. And so you actually had to hold the Lynx sideways, which was not the most comfortable thing in the world, but it worked. Once you got your head round sort of the strange positioning of your hands that was necessary to play those games, you'd make it work, because the games were good. Yes, you're right, the Wonder Swan was designed like that with its multiple buttons. To a certain extent, you could probably argue the Lynx was designed with that in mind as well, because it did have 2 sets of A and B buttons. But the problem was, the Wonder Swan was designed, or rather, the way the Wonder Swan was built meant that it came out to a much more portable size than the Lynx. The Lynx had sort of so much advanced tech for the time in it that it was an absolutely enormous device, particularly in its first incarnation, and thus it wasn't super portable. So you couldn't fit it in a pocket by any means, and also that meant when you were playing it in that vertical mode, it was a bit uncomfortable after a while. What does this do? I think it blew up everything on screen, which was not that helpful. Yes, use it to smash car windows and steal a Game Boy. Although the original Game Boy was no slouch, there's a reason they call it the Brick. The problem with the original Lynx wasn't necessarily that it was sort of bulky, it was the fact it was very long and wide. And they fixed that to a certain extent with the Lynx 2. But it was still too big to fit in a pocket. But I mean, so was the Game Gear, and so was the original Game Boy, you could argue. That's why they then released the Game Boy Pocket and so on. But we never got a Lynx Pocket, we never got a Lynx Mini or anything like that. The furthest they went was with the Lynx 2, which was slightly smaller. And not really sort of better in any way, but it did. Oh god. Yeah, I've still got my Game Boy Pocket somewhere. I've somehow ended up with a Game Boy Pocket and 2 Game Boy Colors. Which are apparently worth a fair bit these days. My wife Andy was looking up prices of them the other day, and she was quite surprised to see that Game Boy Colors are a bit pricey, which is not super surprising for retro stuff these days. But yeah, Game Boy is always one of those things I always thought was always going to be on the cheaper end of things because they were so common, but I guess even those are starting to get price gouged a bit. Anyway, this is Super Missile Command now, which is probably my favourite of the 2 games on this cart. Yeah, that's the downside of the Game Boy Color, isn't it? The lack of backlight on the screen means that it's so difficult to see what's going on. Peak Game Boy for me is the Game Boy Advance SP, because that's just comfortable to hold. It's got backlit screen. You can mod it to have an even better screen if you want to, and it runs Game Boy games, Game Boy Color games, and Game Boy Advance games. So that's a massive library of stuff you've got access to there. So if you want to play Game Boy stuff on original hardware, I would say that is probably the best way to go. Yeah, you're not a fan of the SP. I guess there's the... Well, the DS doesn't do original Game Boy games though, does it? It does do Game Boy Advance games though. The DS screen is a bit nicer than the SPs as well. Although I believe there's 2 models of the SP, one of which, a slightly later model, has got a better screen on it. And again, like I say, you can mod that. I was tempted by the Analog Pocket when it came out, but the ridiculous way that company handles pre-orders and stuff just put me off even wanting to try. So for me, I think Game Boy and stuff is probably mostly going to be in the realm of emulation from here on. There's some Game Boy stuff coming out on Evercade. Obviously not any Nintendo stuff or anything like that, but there are some sort of smaller Game Boy games. And I have no objection to playing Game Boy games on the big screen either. I know some people don't like having sort of huge pixels blown up to TV size, but I have no problem with it. Anyway, this is the thing that makes Super Missile Command interesting, is because you've got upgrades, which you're going to spend your money on. So, we've got 2 pages of upgrades, I think. Oh, I've bought a megaton. Is that what I meant to do? There we are. And there's special weapons as well. So let's take a rain. And I've got the megaton missiles now. And then I just go to exit. And press the right button. There we go. Right, so we now got the megaton missiles, which you see have a larger explosion radius. Which certainly makes life a bit easier. Oh no. He was in the city. Brainwave, I don't think I'm familiar with that. But yeah, Psychedelic Space Invader sounds absolutely like something that would have been put out by someone. That was the rain special weapon that I used there, by pressing the B button instead of the A button to fire. Good for getting yourself out of a pinch. Spectrum games actually look really nice on sort of a nice bright screen. So like I've got a an Anbernic Win 600 that stuff like Spectrum games and things like that look really nice on. It's the vibrant colours. If you've got a screen that really emphasises the bright, vibrant colours that the Spectrum's palette used, yeah, it looks great. Yeah, this is probably my favourite version of Missile Command. I mean, I know it's not sort of the pure original version, but I think just the difficulty pacing is nice, and the upgrade system works well with it, and it looks and sounds nice. Again, it might be nice to have a bit of music. Did you know that the Atari Lynx is originally called the Atari Peacock, and then the war in Argentina happened, and time makes fools of us all? No, I didn't, Rosie. No, I did not. Did you know that Super Mario Bros. 2 on the NES was actually originally an adaptation of something called Doki Doki Panic? Did you know that? I heard that's a big secret that no one knows. Help. You made all that up? Surely not. Why would you lie to me, Rosie? Why would you lie? Oh god. Oh god. Everyone's dying. Actually, it's pronounced Dinky Dinky Donkums. It most certainly is. Right. I want... What do I want? Laser launched. That sounds like fun, and it costs €1,000 apparently. Let's do this. Alright, so laser launched have big explosions and they launch faster. We'll have none of that. Experimental. Because those weapons are mental. They're proper mental, they are. They're the Namrud of nuclear weapons. This is better than that Dragon 32 missile command I typed in. Well, you know, it's the power of 16-bit. The power of 16-bit at work. With full stereo sound and a palette of 4,096 colours. Hardware scaling. All manner of other good things like that. I think I knew someone who used to own a Dragon 32. But I don't remember a lot about it. I definitely knew someone who owned an Acorn Electron. Because I think I remember playing Horace and the Spiders on that. That was like my first encounter with Horace and the Spiders. And my friend had a BBC and then an Archimedes, but his dad worked for Acorn, so he was kind of sort of contractually obliged to have those. He had a lot of pirated software. You play Missile Command and the Chinese takeaway, but you used the trackball, so it wasn't racist. Yes. It's true. The trackball is the least racist control scheme of all time. Oh! How dare you dodge! Still sexist, I suppose. I mean, how would you make an unsexist trackball? I have to ask. We'll go for a duel this time. Or should I save up and get experimental? Let's go for duel this time. Tracklet. Isn't that just what the old ThinkPads used to have? Yeah, my dad had a ThinkPad. That stupid nubbin thing was one of the worst control schemes I think I've ever used. Oh no! Everyone's dead. They are stupid, and I also hate them. We can feel united together in the fact that we hate those stupid things. I find it surprising that we still haven't really figured out a good laptop control scheme. Because, like, trackpads aren't great either. United by hate. Stroke pads. Right, anyway, that is Super Asteroids and Missile Command. Let's now move on to... Let's play some California games. That's a classic. True, a good laptop control scheme is buy a fucking desktop. Yes. Or at the very least, buy a mouse and keyboard. Anytime I go to... I go into the office and take my laptop in, I always take a mouse and keyboard with me, just because it's horrendous. If I can do surfing properly, I'm unsubscribing. Alright, well, let's see if I can remember how to do this. Nope. I forgot which way you have to go, but it's something like this. You go whee, and you go whee. You go whoo. There we go. Get some speed up. See, I'm amazing. Please don't unsubscribe. I've wiped out. You can't ban me from my own channel. Look, I got 435 points. You're just jealous. My amazing surfing skills. There we go, 435 points. Let's have another go at that. This is actually really the only event in California games that I vaguely know how to do. So you just get a bit of speed up, but just by doing a few of them to begin with. You get that going, and then you go whoop over the top. And get some speed again. And again. And whoop! 400 points. Double 360. Got 580 points. I'm flying now. Oh, I couldn't quite make it 3. Use the crank to steer. God, that must be a nightmare. Do you have a play date, Ken? I don't know anyone who's actually got one. $785. We'll call that a win. BMX. I've never really been sure how to do, but let's try it. I just don't really know how to do anything in this. Like up and down will steer you up and down on the course, but I don't know how you stay upright. Alright, down. No. Right, so the buttons do something, which is jump and die. Jump! No. There we go. That's how you... No! No, don't press B. Don't... Okay, so B is the death button. And... No! This is impossible. Jump! 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 I like you all to note that I've got 11 points so far. My radical BMX skills. Jump! There we go, 24 points. I don't understand. I don't understand how the scoring works in this. You'd love Descenders more if they got rid of the fall too high and wipe out mechanic. Well, you've got a pump. You've got a counter pump, Rosie. You can survive like really high falls if you pump with the right stick at the proper time. And yes, I know you're always pumping, but you've got to really pump. Really pump. Counter pump. That didn't work. Pumpers love to pump. Pumpers need to pump. Pumpers be pumping. Everybody pumping. Pump the jam. Pump it up. 13 points. No. No. Oh yeah, footbag's not too hard, is it? Yeah, I could never get my head around this one. I think the skateboarding one was alright as well. Or the roller skating or whatever it is. But that's not in this version, it's only in like the computer versions. Oh, this is actually impossible. Jump! Death! Ooh! A lot of people think California Games is like the best of the Epic's games. I've always preferred... I think Winter Games is probably my favourite. I think Winter Games is probably my favourite. Totally Hopeless. Yes, I'd agree with that. Winter Games are good. I quite like Summer Games, but there's a few of them... James Bond's Aquatic Games beats all of them. Does it, though? Well... This has got some lovely Lynx scaling going on. Yeah, but I can't remember how you play this one. Let's see. So I think you... Nope. You have to press the button to turn round. Start a hand plant on the vertical. No. That's... I did get the hang of this one at one point. Yeah. You made the stunt attempt too late. Game over. I did get the hang of this at one point, but I've completely forgotten everything about it. Right, so you did that. It's something to do with like the rhythm you push up and down at, I think. No. No, that's just slowly rolling to a stop in the middle, isn't it? But hey, you can go in and out of the foreground. No pulling turns in the transition. Right, come on, we got this time. Up and down and up and down, up, down, up, down. No. No, you don't get a ton of games like this anymore. There are sort of a few that kind of persisted into sort of the PS2 era. There were a few. Like Game Grumps covered one a few weeks back called Party Girls, which is basically a game like this, only with bikini-clad Japanese women. Viz was quite good, yeah. Some of the more recent Olympic games have been quite good as well. The one that Sega did for 2020 was pretty good. I don't know. Viz is weird because the majority of it is like them taking part in this fun run. And so most of it is just sort of like running along and dodging stuff. But then there's these weird mini games between each stage where you have to do things like Buster going out is bouncing up and down on his testicles while there's a couple of people shagging in the background. Or Johnny Fart Pants is trying to fart himself into orbit and that sort of thing. I did it on YouTube and didn't get into trouble for it, so you're probably safe. No. Yeah, fuck half-plate then. Footbag! Oh, missed. Missed the seagull. Footbag is basically just rhythmic button tapping, so it's fairly straightforward. It's mostly to do with position, I think, with where it is in relation to you. And hitting the bird, of course. Hitting the bird is the important thing. I'll foot your bag. Sounds like a euphemism for CBT. You know, I love the fact that CBT has 3 different meanings, all of which are very different from one another. Because you have the one that you're referring to, the footbag meaning, if you will. Then you have compulsory basic training for motorbikes, and then you also have cognitive behavioural therapy as well. And those 3 things are all very different from one another. So you don't want to get them muddled up. When you tell your parents that you can't come to afternoon tea because you have been having a very good CBT session. Time's up! The first and third ones are the same thing. Well, It depends on your therapist. It depends on your therapist. I'm going to try half pipe one more time. Because there's got... Right, come on. Up. And up. You know what? I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up, and then I'm gonna prove that it is possible to do the half pipe. Bear with me. Atari Lynx, California Games, Game FAQs. California Games Lynx. TBT is cock-based therapy. Well, I don't know if therapy is the right word. Half pipe, foot bag, half pipe. Press any button to start, then use up and down to keep the skateboard in motion. Up when you're moving up the pipe and down when you're moving down the pipe. Use A in a direction to pull a trick, but holding the button too long or too short will cause you to bail. Okay. Cock-based thrumming. Oh, he's still going. Right, so you're supposed to... push down when you're going down and up when you're going up. No, that's still falling off. Right, down, up, down, up, down, up. No. Yeah, I mean, that's the nature of a game like this, really, isn't it? Where all of the events are so different from one another. It's not really easy to standardize the controls because the motions that you're doing are so different from one another. I cannot get the timing on that. Because we're just... Yeah, absolutely. Most of the games need to be multiplayer because otherwise you're just competing against your own scores, which is fine. Particularly in this Lynx version, which sort of really highlights your high scores at the end of it. But especially in the form of the home computer versions, I think it's important to have some competition. Otherwise, you just get gold medal on everything just for participating, which is sort of a real sort of going to school in 2022 sort of thing. It's like, well done, you tried. Here, have a gold medal. Right, I think we can leave that behind. Okay. What should we do now? Let's have a look at... Turn the analog sticks in. Let's play Zump. Cybervirus is okay. It's got a cool name. That's one of the sort of more modern ones from Songbird, where he's tried to make a first-person shooter with Lynx tech. So in Zump, in fact, whoops, that's not right. In Zump, I believe what we do, it's one of these puzzlers where you just have to get rid of all of the blocks by moving over them. So it's pretty straightforward, especially in these initial levels where you'd literally just that. Well, how do you pronounce it then? Xump. Xump. Oh no, I've done it wrong. By clearing your throat. So I'm going to play a game of... That sounds like that thing you do where you're in class with a teacher you didn't like and you just cough under your breath and say something rude. Lovely stuff. Can we get Hoffman to make some fake piracy tracks that play for the Evercade? I feel like he's just missing that before each game. Zump. So basically, you want a crack tro for every game on Evercade. I see how this works. For the I think most of you watching know that I do some work for Evercade. On the recent C64 collection, we had to do so much work to strip off crack tros, because even in the cases where companies have officially licensed stuff, in a lot of cases the only archived versions of software out there are things that pirates have done. And so this includes stuff like the C64 Mini and stuff. If you look at the C64 Mini, a lot of the ROMs on there are pirate versions. They've just been set up in such a way that it skips the crack tray at the beginning. And so as part of putting together the C64 collection, we've had to do so much stuff to sort of clean up all that stuff and make sure that people don't run into it and have an experience as close as possible to the original, like an original commercial version of it. Even though I guess there's probably an argument to be made that not many people would have experienced it like that. Because I know certainly in the case of the Atari 8-bit, the vast majority of games we had were pirate copies. The crack tray scene wasn't very big on Atari 8-bit, sadly. And so we kind of missed out a little bit on that side of culture. It came into its own a bit on the Atari ST, though. Because a lot of the piracy groups on the Atari ST, they did things like they would compress multiple games onto a single disc. I've done it again. Fuck. Yeah, on the Atari ST, you would get stuff like the discs from Automation and the Medway Boys, and they would have all their shout-outs in place and that sort of thing. But yeah, not something that really happened on the Atari 8-bit, so sort of coming to the C64 a bit late as I have done. Oh, I can't do this! Yeah, coming to the C64 a bit late as I have done, it's sort of been a bit of a learning experience to find out about all these things. No, I've done that wrong again, haven't I? Yes, I have. Right, down here, up here, down here, down here, down here, down here. Yeah, I used to spend quite a lot of time sitting and watching demos. Every time. Sitting and watching demos when I was a kid. You come around here, come around here, you come around here, and you shit in my bog and spoffed each other off. Yeah, I spent a lot of time watching demos on the ST when I was a kid, so that sort of got me my feel of the stuff that you would get in crack tros. Right, if I go this way, then 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 I've done it. Like, I remember stuff like the big demo was one of my favourites, because it had a ton of C64 music, but rewritten for the ST sound chip. There's a bunch of Rob Hubbard stuff. And all sorts of other tunes that were sort of made famous by the C64, but played on the ST, which had a notoriously poor sound chip. But the guys behind that demo had managed to really make it sing. You misread done as dong. I can see how you could do that, to be fair. I can see how that would happen. Ooh. This looks scary. Right, so nab them. You come around here. Come around here. Go around here. And you go around here. Titan ported ST-NICC to the Mega Drive a few years ago, and the frame rate is quality considering no acceleration chips. I'm not 100% sure what that means, but I guess I assume it's a demo of some sort. I should explore demos some more at some point. It's something I've not looked at for quite a while. And as I say, it's something I always used to enjoy quite a bit. No, no. Dang. Oh, okay. ST Nick, or ST, however you pronounce it, is a meme demo, a filled polygon demo originally on the ST. That's cool. I'll have to check that out. Like, one of my favourites, I think, was the Union demo, which was, there was like a collective of demo scene people called the Union, obviously. But the thing I really liked about that is that the sort of menu that allowed you to switch between the screens of the demo, they said, time up. Fuck. So it's a bit like Bad Apple in that sense, is it? It's like each new platform gets a version of ST Nick. I've seen Bad Apple running on some really bizarre stuff. I'm pretty sure there's like even a 2600 version of it, which is bonkers. Oh, what do we do here? Around here? Come around here. And you come around here. Oh no, I've done that wrong, haven't I? Clearly! In the same year, someone ported it to Super FX and the frame rate was worse than the Mega Drive one. I can believe that. I can believe that. I remember being slightly disappointed with the Super FX even back in the day. It's like they were like, "Oh, Star Fox is this amazing thing that you'll never see anything quite like Star Fox." And then it came out, and like there was stuff running on the ST at a better frame rate, and I was like, "No, that's not right, is it?" No, no. Yeah, there was stuff running on the ST at a better frame rate than the Super FX chip. And it was a little disappointing back in the day. I mean, Star Fox is a great game, but I was expecting something a bit more along the lines of Starblade in the arcades at that time. Athena's wield a form of black magic that even most pagans would be scared of. Yes, I'd agree. Star Fox is great if you like playing a slideshow, am I right? I enjoy Star Fox. I still enjoy Star Fox. Like, I actually think I slightly prefer it to Star Fox 64. Primarily because of the music. Because the music on Star Fox 64 is rubbish. And I won't let anyone argue with me on that because it is rubbish. Because the N64 sound chip was atrocious. Hooray! Yes, I remember getting to the fruit machine. False, because there is no N64 sound chip. True, true enough. Well, whatever sound chip Nintendo, or whatever sound technology that Nintendo chose to use in their flagship titles then, was terrible. Because Zelda Ocarina of Time sounds like ass, Star Fox 64 sounds like ass. The only one that doesn't sound terrible is Super Mario 64. But you compare like the stuff that Nintendo did on the N64 in terms of music, and then you compare that to like Rare's stuff. Rare's music was amazing. Used some fantastic samples for synthesis. And then you compare that to like what Ocarina of Time and Star Fox 64 sound like. It's just no competition. It's bizarre. Yes, I 100% agree, Trent. The SNES era had some fantastic music. I remember being absolutely blown away by the fact that the soundtrack for Link to the Past had cymbal crashes in it. Because I'd not heard anything. I'd not heard anything quite like that before. We didn't have wavetable cards on the PC at that time. We were still rocking an ad-lib or a sound blaster, and so to hear sort of realistic percussion sounds. Hear realistic percussion sounds on a home console was amazing, but especially if you were used to sort of the chiptune sound of the NES. Oops. Oh, have I made a terrible mistake? I might have made a terrible mistake. I have made a terrible mistake. Hooray! Yes, Link to the Past soundtrack is so good. Yeah, I don't know a lot about the N64 tech behind it. I just know that the sound quality, as someone who has always appreciated game music, was immensely disappointing on the N64. Which I always thought was a real shame. No! No, no, no. Because the compositions themselves were good. Like, the actual tunes in Ocarina of Time and Star Fox are great, but they're just ruined by these horrible tinny synthesis sounds. Oh, no, I can't get the rhythm on that. Yeah, Square did do some amazing stuff in this NES era. I mean, like, the opera in Final Fantasy VI might look a bit silly today, but it was still something quite unlike anything else that had been done at the time. It reminds me, I do need to get around to playing the Pixel remaster of 6 at some point, because I know they did something interesting with the opera scene. I think they actually sort of put it into semi-3D, Octopath Traveler style. I'm interested to see what that looks like. I've never really seen that many people complaining about SNES sound. Rosie, I see more people complaining about the Mega Drive, because you hear a lot of people complaining about the Mega Drive sounding tinny, because of its FM synthesis. But really, that was no different from what PCs were doing at the time, and a lot of PC music got really high praise for doing interesting things within the limitations of... No. Yeah, a lot of PC music at the time got praised for doing stuff within the limitations of the time. Whereas it's quite common to see people criticizing the Mega Drive for having tinny sound, because it was an FM synthesis chip like you had in the Ad-Lib and Sound Blaster. It also meant that the Mega Drive was not very good at playing back samples, which is why you get sort of such crispy sampled speech on Mega Drive games, even on stuff like Street Fighter and things like that. My dad always used to describe it as the mouthful of cornflakes effect. But it was a very distinctive thing to the Mega Drive. And actually, sort of, today I like that, because it's something that's unique to that platform. And one thing I really find myself thinking about a lot these days is that old platforms are interesting because they have unique characteristics. Like, if you look at the Spectrum and the Commodore 64 and the Atari 8-bit and everything like that, they are all very different from one another, and that made a right hash of that. They're all very different from one another, and that's what makes them interesting. Like, you can play one game on each of those platforms and have a very different experience, and I really like that. Whereas today, you play a PS4 game and it's exactly the same as an Xbox game, and sure, the Switch version might be a little bit different because it's running on lower powered hardware, but still. I've missed all of those and run out of time. Yeah, Streets Race 2 soundtrack is amazing because Yuzo Koshiro was an absolute master of using relatively limited sound hardware, because he had a background that goes right back to sort of the early Japanese home computers like the PC-88 and the PC-98. So like he had experience with composing stuff for things like the E series. And so he was always very good at getting the absolute best out of limited sound hardware. No. This is a great game to play while I'm talking, because you don't really have to concentrate on it. Uh-oh. I've made a mistake, possibly? Have I made a mistake? What about if we go... No. Yeah, Kashiro's still very active. He's very active on Twitter as well, and he's very open to talking to people as well. So like I've chatted with him about a few things, and in fact we talked with him about yeah, I know what you mean. Watching someone play a puzzle game like that is always a nightmare, isn't it? Because yeah, if you're not doing it the way you're thinking of. Anyway, Koryun asked about Cybervirus. Like I say, this isn't an amazing game, but it's an interesting one. As one of the last demolition ops guerrillas, or dogs of war, the hero journeys around the world destroying biomechanical monstrosities bent on subjugating the world to their will. Each mission will require you to make careful use of your limited resources to accomplish your goals. Going in guns ablaze will often leave you with an empty clip and no escape. Survey the map and think carefully about the best way to approach your foes. Right, so controls, we've got A, shoot, B is strafe, start is switch weapon, select is display map. Yeah, Trent, it's really interesting, and in more recent years, a lot of those developers have been much more willing to come forward than they were in past years, because there's a lot of really interesting stories to be told. And back in the day, they just weren't able to tell those stories because in many cases they weren't allowed to reveal themselves. Particularly in the early days of Atari, programmers just weren't allowed to be credited. The late Ryo Umemoto, known for PC-98 soundtracks like You Know. Don't think I'm familiar with his stuff, but yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out. Remind me after this, and I will have to have a look. For your first mission, locate the blue towers and take them out. You end your missions by entering the red zone at the map edge. Alright, here we go. So, this is what a sort of first-person shooter looks like on the Lynx. So it's outdoors rather than indoors. So that sort of limits the amount of scenery it has to worry about at any given time. So there's one of those blue towers that we can head towards. A playlist on YouTube called Wall Stories is worth working with. Yes! I think I've heard of that, but I haven't actually checked it out yet, so I will have to make sure I do that. I found that researching my Atari A to Z flashback series a while back on 2600 games was really interesting because, like I say, a lot of developers had started to come forward in more recent years and talk more about the things that they've been doing. How do I destroy this blue tower? Apparently not with grenades. Or maybe it is with grenades. Oh, that's the map button. Oh, it is with grenades. It just takes about 1 million of them. Right, let's look at the map. Not super helpful. There is a dude coming for me, though. No, leave me be. So I think you have to sort of wander around and it will gradually reveal stuff on the map. Because at the moment, all we can see on there is the mission objectives. But there will be some more supplies lying around somewhere. Let's head for this tree. Surely this will provide us with supplies. Nope. Nothing in this direction. That's the blue tower we just destroyed. We head off to the west a bit. You see what I mean? I think this game is it's a nice idea, but I just don't think it's quite been executed as well as it could do. Because there's a lot of sort of... I think this is some supplies, hopefully. Oh no, that's a dead thing. That's a nice little touch, though. I get the impression it was more a sort of proof of concept than anything. Like he just thought, I wonder if we can do a first-person shooter on the Lynx. And the answer is, yeah, kinda. But it could just do with a few things like being able to find the resources and stuff around the map a bit more easily. Because like, I have no idea where there's stuff to pick up. The trees are possessed. They're going to get you. Can we shoot a tree? No. The trees will infest your dreams. Oh, is that something? Was there a pickup right next to the... Oh, that's a dead thing again, isn't it? Badunk. Wander over a shiny metallic corpse. Nope. Anyway, I think you get the idea of that one. Like I say, it's one probably worth spending a bit of time with, but not one that's sort of got a lot of immediacy about it. Let's have a look at Crystal Mines 2, because I'm very fond of this game. This is an interesting one because this was originally released back in the day of the Lynx, but Songbird Productions has actually added stuff to it as well. So this is sort of like a special edition of it that's got some extra levels. And this is cool because it looks like Boulder Dash, but it's not Boulder Dash. Press A to start. So yeah, your goal in it, as in Boulder Dash, is simply to grab all the gems and stuff. But instead of just moving through the dirt to dig through it, you actually shoot through it. And you can move stuff around. And you can shoot enemies. Because defeating enemies in Boulder Dash is always a bit of a nightmare. Whoops! Oh dear. So it's got a bit more of a sort of action feel than Boulder Dash has. And there's a lot of levels in this one. Like, even before the additional levels that Songbird Productions put in there, there are lots of levels in this. Alright, there we go. That means the exit is open. And there we go. And then if you care about score, you can go for score. You can also continue as many times as you want, so score is sort of meaningless unless you're sort of going for one, like a one credit clear or anything like that, or trying to see how far you can get in a single session or whatever. So it's there if you want to engage with it, but if you also just want to work your way through the levels, you can do that too. But this one is a lot of people's favourite from the Lynx collections on Evercade. And I can understand why. It's good. It's got some really tricky puzzles. It's easy to understand. And it's fun. Everyone loves a diggy puzzle game. So you get 50,000 points if you complete a level first time, so that sort of makes the score a bit more relevant. And we've got bombs that we can use. This is a map power-up that allows us to just scroll around the map and see what's what. Not super helpful on this level, but potentially useful on some other levels. Oops. I just said, Tinpot, it's not Boulder Dash, because you're not digging through the dirt, you're shooting stuff. And that doesn't sound like a huge difference. But it makes quite a big difference to how you play the game. Because there's less sort of precarious balancing boulders on your head, and there's a bit more sort of doing stuff from a distance. It kind of shakes up the feel of it quite substantially. No! And being able to shoot enemies is a nice twist on the formula that you don't normally get either. Yeah, there's some good puzzles in this one. This and Chip's Challenge on Lynx are two really good sort of action puzzlers. Now, where is the exit? And if you're wondering, yes, the exit is sometimes buried under dirt. As I feel it might be in this situation. There it is. Thankfully, the time limits are fairly generous. Lovely stuff. And onwards. Yeah, got to be a bit careful in this one, because the ones with the sort of sparkly sand there, those are explosive. So if you shoot those, they will blow up. And they will take you with it, quite happily. If we just do that from a distance, there you go. And if you're not careful, I think that can take the gems out with it. So that can leave your level in an unwinnable situation if you're not careful. Thankfully, if you do mess up, you just need to tap the select button and you can start again, so... No! And there we go. Out with a bang! And now we got a sawy thing on the front, which does allow you to just cut through the dirt like you would in a more conventional game like this. But that only lasts for a few seconds. And it's quite likely you'll get yourself into a bit of trouble using that, so... Again, you need to be a bit careful. Kaboom! Again, watching out for the explosive sand there. Oh, he's angry. He's angry. Nope. 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 Right, this slightly darker coloured one there, you can't kill by shooting, so you've either got to catch him in an explosion or drop a rock on him, or just avoid him. These are shot power-ups, I believe. There's the exit. They do move in pretty predictable patterns though, so you can stay out of their way if you manipulate their behaviour a bit. Tanya's Tangram. Yeah, this is a really good game actually. Like I say, it's just different enough from Boulder Dash to distinguish itself, because it's got really solid level design. The shooting mechanic adds a lot to it. And all the different tile types, like the explosives and the different types of rock and the different types of sand and so on. It's one that I kind of wrote off a bit back in the day because I'd played a lot of Boulder Dash and games like it as well, but having come to it a bit more recently, I sort of see that I've missed out on it a fair bit. Right, so now what we need to do is we need to drop a bomb there. And another one. Just to loosen that boulder there. That will then fall down along with a lot of booty. You need to keep out of the way, make sure nothing falls on your head. But one nice difference from Boulder Dash is that a lot of the boulders, not all of them, but a lot of them, these light coloured ones, you can shoot and destroy. So this dark one here, you can't destroy with anything other than an explosion. But the light coloured boulders you can destroy. Which again makes quite a big difference. To how you approach the level. It also makes it much less likely that you're going to get into a situation where you get stuck as well, which is always one of my big annoyances with Boulder Dash is right from the beginning of the game how easy it was to get stuck on certain levels. Like I'm thinking particularly, I think it's the third level. It's got such a complicated arrangement of boulders around the place that you can get yourself into an unwinnable situation very easily. And it's quite a big level as well, so if you then have to retry it, it takes time to do that. And that's a bit annoying. It's still possible to get stuck in this, but much less likely. Over here. Actually, I'm not sure we need to go over there at all, do we? Are there any gems up there? No. Alright, forget that. Oh, you can move diagonally as well. You can't do that in Boulder Dash. Oops, didn't need to do that. All the ones you played had very fiddly controls as well, going two spaces when you only want to one, meaning yet another restart. Yes, the fact that this is pixel-based movement rather than tile-based movement as well kind of eliminates that problem. So if you just tap a direction in this one, then you just move a tiny bit. And again, that sort of goes with the way the game's designed, as more of a sort of action game with some puzzle elements. Oops. See, if I collected those diamonds now, that rock would drop on my head and that would get me stuck. So we eliminate the rock. And we're sorted. I think. Assuming the exit's where I think it is. No, that's just some bombs. Where's the way out? Oh, it's right in the middle. First attempt. Oh, this one's tough. Lots of explodey sand in this one. And lots of explodey monsters as well. They got some different types of monster to deal with here. You see the ones that have got the sort of yellow spunk all over them? Those are explosive monsters who'll explode when they get near you, or if you shoot them. Oh! That's a trap. Not a fatal one, despite the skull on it. It just freezes you for a moment. So if you haven't dealt with that monster, he can come and get you. First one you played was one called 20 Tons, Stalkers. Not heard of that one. I remember the original Boulder Dash, obviously, because I played that a lot on the Atari. I remember Repton as well. As my friend, my BBC owning friend, whose dad worked at Acorn, he had Repton on the BBC. What else? Didn't play Dig Dug until quite late. That's not really the same kind of game, despite sort of having digging and stuff. But yeah, there's the game from. Oh no, that was going so well. Inflation Fetish Dig Dug. Yes, yes, yes. Interested to know what Rosie thinks about all the inflation in Dig Dug, given his love for it in other video games. Furry Inflation Fetish Dig Dug. Yeah, there was one from English Software called Diamonds that I was very fond of. That was sort of single screen like Dig Dug, but it involved collecting diamonds like Boulder Dash. And I was very fond of that. And for those of you who aren't familiar with my other video stuff, the guy behind that is a guy called Simon Hunt. He actually found my video on Diamonds and its sequel Dan Strikes Back a while back. And a sort of offhand comment I made in that video about, because it was originally supposed to be a trilogy. It was originally supposed to be a trilogy, sort of very slightly riffing off Star Wars. So it was supposed to be Diamonds, and then Dan Strikes Back, and then Return of the Fungi. He never got around to making Return of the Fungi. And so in my video about it, I sort of casually challenged someone from the community to make Return of the Fungi, and I was very surprised when Simon Hunt himself got in touch and said, alright, you're on, I'll make it. And then a couple of months later he got back to me and said, well, I made it, here it is. So I can honestly say I inspired someone to create something, and it's a good game too. It's a fun game. I got a video about it on my channel if you want to see it, but it is Atari 8-bit exclusive. Not a lot of games you can say that about. But that's one thing I found really fun about doing my YouTube channel in particular, in exclusive. Yeah, one really fun thing I found about doing YouTube in particular is that I've sort of had the opportunity to speak to so many people who made games that were important to me as a kid, and that's been really cool. I've even had stuff like Chris Crawford, people like Chris Crawford who made some of the early strategy games in my comments, sort of providing some insight into the way he developed some of these games and what he was thinking behind them and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a real pleasure when that happens, and it's a real pleasure to sort of meet new members of the community that way and all sorts of things. I never imagined that I'd sort of be talking to some of these people when I first started doing these videos. It was just purely a vanity project more than anything, because I have all this old Atari hardware and I wanted to do something with it. So I started doing it, but it sort of brought me into touch with so many people that I really admired in my childhood. A lot of whom is still doing stuff, either commercially or in the community. Which is great to see. Oh no, you're an invincible one. I don't remember what the grey one does. No need for us to find out, I don't think. That's a breakable block with some stuff in it. That's just bonus points at the end of the level. Well, thank you for that, Ken. I'm going to be finishing shortly anyway, so you won't be missing much more. But thank you for stopping by, and I will be sure to check that out. So it sounds like you've got a lot of time for their work, so I'm all for exploring new music, particularly in the video game space. Right, I think we're reaching a point where I don't know how to solve these levels, so we may be coming to a close very shortly. But let's just see how we get on with this one. I think this is about as far as I got when I was playing this earlier, to sort of remind myself of how it all worked. There's a lot of invincible monsters in this one. You see, in that case, you do have to drop the rocks and... Oh no! And there's one hiding in that monster. A monster hiding in that rock, even. Sneaky. Yep, it's one of those things you just have to sort of learn, unfortunately. But you know it for next time. So now I can go, ha ha ha, I know you're there. Uh-oh. Nope, go away. Oh no! I crashed a gem. I think that might make this level unbeatable. But we'll see. Some levels there's more gems than you need. Oh. One more try, and then we'll call it a day. Right, you come on down here. Missed! Damn it. Worth a try. There we go. That got him nicely. Yes, I could happily continue on with this for several hours, but the wife wants to go to the gym after her Final Fantasy XIV raid, so we're off to do that after this. Fun times, but good for both of us, because we both need it. Don't forget to raid another streamer. Sure. I think I know how to do that. Right. In fact, let's see if I can figure out how to do that. Okay, let me just switch back to what we were doing. Where am I? Here. Marvellous. / raid, then a username. I've also got a raid button in the software that I'm using as well. But I don't know if that brings up who's live. Let's have a look. Let's see who's online. The only person I'm following who's live at the moment is Zentria, who I don't think is is someone that a lot of you are going to necessarily go on with. Honda PRG. Okay, I'll take your recommendations, Snorkers. I'm not familiar with them, but then I'm pretty new to Twitch generally, so I will take your word with them. So I will send you on your way to Ponder PRG. But before I do that, I would just say thank you very much to all of you who've joined me for this. This is my best number of viewers that I've had so far, and it's been a real pleasure to chat with you. So thank you. Do feel free to join me on any other streams. Like I say, I do regular streams on Wednesday nights at 5:30 PM UK time. And I also just do impromptu streams when I feel like it as well. So just follow the channel if you don't already. And yeah, I will hopefully see you in another stream sometime. So I'll send you in Ponder PRG's direction now. Thank you very much for watching, and I will hopefully see you again soon.